Alright, here we go. NOLA Motorsports Park. This is round 2 of Pan American Superbike season. This is actually double points weekend as well. So if you watch all my videos, you'll see I hop in with a couple different 1,000 races as well, just trying to get some season points. Going out for the Grand Corsa. So what had happened this weekend was it was going to rain pretty bad on Sunday. We all knew this going into it. And so they ended up trying to get a couple of the Grand Courses done or they got all the Grand Courses done on Saturday afternoon, actually. So Saturday morning, we all roll up to Riders Meeting, find out we're actually racing that day. So it was a little bit of a surprise, but it worked out okay. I was glad we got some dry races in there instead of having to do everything in the rain. And so we come to find out on Sunday, there was a bunch of lightning and everything in the morning, so there was a bunch of lightning delays. We managed to get all the sprint races in, which was great, but no way we would have gotten the Grand Courses in there that day as well. So it had actually rained the night before as well, and so early in the morning it was dry, or it was a bit wet out on course, and then started to dry up as the day went on. By the time we actually got to the courses in the afternoon, after a couple rounds of practice, qualifying, then we had the Grand Courses. It was pretty dry, as you can see out on track, so that was good. For this one, we'll grid up here in a second. I did get to qualify 4th overall, which was good. I was pleased with that. I mean, qualifying time around this course, I was at basically like 2 minutes flat. It was like 2 minutes and some change there, but it was a kind of 2 minutes flat. As we see, I end up doing much better throughout the day. I mean, this was my first time at NOLA, so really cool facility. We got to play with the go-karts the night before on Friday evening when we rolled in. They got a whole go-kart track and you can rent them there. So that was really fun. But back to motorcycle racing. Yeah, first time in NOLA. Really cool track. Pretty bumpy. So I was having some trouble with suspension, getting that dialed in. It felt like in some parts on the back section, it gets really kind of hard on the suspension, it feels like. So I didn't have anyone there this weekend to work with on suspension, so I was kind of fiddling with it a little bit myself, and I got it reasonable. I think that there weren't any huge problems other than it just being pretty bumpy for us. So as we see, we're kind of first on second row here. If you watch my last videos, you know I did pretty terrible at starts. I think as a whole weekend I did a lot better. This first one was not great, but it wasn't the worst either, so glad about that. About to get started. Round 2. 600 SuperStock Grand Corsa. Waiting for second place to crawl his way up here. He's Marquezing us, playing mind games, getting all our tires cold. And here we go. Lights out. All right. As we can see, I get gapped off the line by quite a few. Thankfully, I make a few of these back pretty quick, and then it starts to settle into the race, and we kind of filter out into the places we'll be for a little bit. But I have some kind of good back and forth throughout this race with a couple of guys here, which was fun to do. Make a couple mistakes early on, but we get past some of these guys, which is good. Go a little bit deep there, but I think my brakes like really want a little bit of heat in them. I felt like sometimes I don't have it after just the one kind of sighting lap there, but darn it. We get one person going wide. I'm not quite close enough to catch him, and these two, him and I think it's the guy in front of him right there, we end up kind of having a fun bit throughout the rest of the race. probably see them start to do it. Some of these back sections here get pretty bumpy. Yeah, you can see it kind of squirming all over the place around that turn, over the bumps there. And then going into this right-hander here, there's also some bumps there that you try to avoid a little bit. I mean, you really can't avoid them, but, you know, be careful if you're hard on the brakes there. Trying to catch up to these guys in the corners. They get some good drive. I felt like overall this weekend, though, like, I remember having a lot of trouble getting drive out of the corners at Miami in the previous kind of round. This one I felt like I did a lot better. This part here, sketchy. That was real bad. I went on the inside trying to line up a pass, and I thought I could make it, could not make it. And I didn't want to just still try to tip in there and park it in front of the guy behind me who I had just passed. I just didn't think there was going to be enough time. So I kind of just tried to shoot the gap between the two of them, run wide, let them go. Tony right here in front of me, he got through. We had some good races together all weekend. In the rain later, he ends up getting me good. This time, he went a little wide here. I was able to get that space back, which was good. And then now it's just head down, try to catch the two guys in front of me that are putting a little bit of gap on me. At this point, we're running probably 2-3 seconds faster than even my qualifying time. I don't know, everyone told me you find pace in races that you didn't know you had, and it's kind of proved true this whole season as well. I couldn't tell you, I think the end of this race ends up being my fastest lap on the last lap, trying to catch the guy in front of me. And that was almost a full, like, 5 seconds faster than my qualifying time. And I mean, looking back at it, if you asked me right after I got off the track there, like, where did I find 5 seconds, I couldn't tell you. It just somehow happened, but it's kind of fun. So here we're just trying to kind of pay the price for our mistakes and catch up to these guys. They're starting to get away, but I think we've got still a little bit left in the bag. We can catch up to them and see what happens. I felt like the front part of this track, that braking zone, going around this corner into this turn 2, I guess, turn 3, and then 4, I felt like I had some good pace and would catch up to some people. You could hear my back tire kind of skipping around a little bit there. I'm dropping the clutch, but if you watch my Miami videos as well, I was using a lot of the same technique of really, I'm trying to really feather out the clutch, especially in that turn 3, where you're on the brakes fairly hard and you can kind of let it out as you go into that corner. I felt like that really helped. This is another one I feel like once you go through that turn, now you're like on the gas and you just gotta kind of keep it wide open here. You let off just a little bit, the tip in, and then you're back on the gas again. And this part almost reminded me or felt a lot like Roebling if you've ever ridden there. It's just very flowing back area where you're just kind of on the gas, off again. Not a lot of braking going on here until you get up to this zone right here where you're going to be on the brakes a little bit, not super hard, but trailing off there, try to get back on. And then again, just kind of almost on the brakes, on the gas, off the gas, letting the throttle almost kind of shift the weight of the bike around a little bit for you. Do the same here, let off a little bit, get the bike pointed, and then back on the gas. Hard on the brakes here. This is a fun corner. I like this one, dude. hard on the brakes, you can really trail deep into that and get it turned and keep going there. And then you've got this kind of sweeping left-hand turn that you can really wind it all the way up. This one's fun too. I feel like you get the bike leaned over pretty far here, and then it's kind of an increasing radius turn here a little bit, where you can again start to really like spin up the bike and get some speed coming out the corner there. We're staying kind of far back from them, but I do feel like I'm catching up to them a little bit here. One of the things is this is a Grand Corsa race, so this was 10 laps this weekend, and I feel like I maybe had a little bit of endurance, and so I was trying to just put down good clean laps, stay with them, kind of bug on the lens for the rest of this race. It's a little bit of a bummer there, but just stay with them and then see if we can catch up to them, especially in the latter parts of the race. And again, I feel like, at least for me at this level, physical endurance I try to use to my advantage a little bit, and push through a lot of that as we get into the kind of the second half of the race. When today was honestly starting to heat up a little bit. It wasn't crazy hot. It's not going to be hot like it is in July or something over in Barber, but it was starting to heat up compared to what it has been all winter. Definitely out there sweating a bit. Again, this braking zone, I feel like I'm starting to reel them back in a little bit. I don't know if you've ever been to NOLA. Let me know. Comment on my lines. I'd be curious if you take different lines going into this. I go kind of a little bit wide there and then bring it back in for that corner. I try to almost get it up straight and head straight to this corner at the apex, and then go wide again here. This one is, sometimes I felt really comfortable with this corner. Sometimes I felt like it was very easy to either tip in early and then run wide, or tip in late. That one was a little bit tough for me. And then that last corner, especially once it started raining and some of the sprint races got pretty difficult, because if there's that middle strip of, I don't know if it's concrete or what that is, but it felt, you could feel it getting slick there. And then of course the bumps are weird. Going through this turn, you can feel them, like, you almost see them in the video really hitting the bike there. I didn't quite get suspension figured out to feel like I got it. You can even see him get a little out of shape there off of one of those bumps on the rear tire there. But I'm finally catching up to him. Seems like maybe we'll get a little late race action here to see what happens, see if we can mix it up, get another spot or two. Another one of the things I was working on a couple of these corners, turn one there was definitely one, as well as turn, I think it's 6 in the back here, but is really driving more through the corners instead of kind of braking all the way through them. Trying to get the bike pointed and drive through the apex a little bit more. I felt like I was picking up some time doing that, especially on the back, where you're trying to really kind of wind up that speed a little bit, and the earlier you can get on, the better. So this is the other spot where I try to do that, is kind of get the bike pointed. And you can see me playing around a little bit with lines there, trying to go inside or outside of that middle line there. I tried a couple different things this weekend to figure it out, and even different laps were different ones, different races were different ones. Yeah, I mean, as my first time at the track, kind of experimenting a little bit, especially once you start picking up the pace as to whether, which lines are really working out for you. Do you feel like you're gaining on anyone anywhere by doing a different line, or do you kind of stick to a little bit more of a traditional line? Fun to play around with a bit. The other thing I did was, for this one, switched up my gearing compared to last race. I think I went with a 42 rear, if I remember correctly, which I thought honestly ended up pretty good. I don't know what other people were running for gearing there, but I felt like, if I get really good drive out of the last turn on that front straight, then I was I was hitting the rev limiter in 6th, but it wasn't for very long before you're right on the brakes again. So it might have bounced off 1 or 2 times, and then you're back on the brakes. So I also felt like in a lot of places I wasn't really between gears too much. Like, there weren't a lot of corners where you felt like, oh, I don't know which gear to be in. Felt like you could really hold a lot of the same gear throughout this whole back straight. Yeah, maybe on this next lap we'll try to listen to what we were doing for the kind of shifting points. This one though, I'm finally kind of up on them, trying to figure out, see what they're doing, see if there's anywhere I'm catching up to them a little bit, see if there's something they make a mistake on or somewhere they seem a little bit slower on. Getting closer to them here, and then I feel like, they start to pull away a little bit on this back corner area. Actually going into this corner, this kind of long right-hander, a couple of right-handers, and then onto the straight, I did play around with going, whether you stay in 3rd gear going into it, or you try to shift down in the 2nd to get a little bit more drive. Here we see we're catching up to them. What do we do? We get one on the brakes. Can we hold them? And we do. We get that spot. Now we're focused on this guy. What do we see? The guy's right behind me. He comes through, does almost exact same thing that I did turn 1 of the first lap of this race. All good. And he actually, I didn't realize how close he was after that turn. I thought maybe we had put a little bit of a gap, but he was right back on us very shortly. And you'll see where that matters on the next lap. But I liked staying on the kind of inside of that concrete. I think by the end of the weekend I had decided that. I did try a couple ones, but that middle line, I liked staying on the inside of it for that turn there. These ones, that turn I felt like was real fun. I kind of leaned over, let off a little bit, and then just keep driving through it. And you can just do the same thing for all these ones. You're kind of flipping back and forth over it. Those are fun ones. We are finally catching up to a little bit of traffic here, so that's one thing now I'm starting to think of is, this guy's going to try to get around them. Is there going to be anywhere that he gets held up? Try not to get myself held up. Can we, does anything interesting happen? Because now there's traffic that we got to get around. We get some good drive out of here. I was, again, I don't know whether it was some of the gearing that I was running or what, but I felt happy. I tend to not think of the, crusty old CBR as keeping up with anyone on the straights, but, we did pretty well. Here's one where I saw he was pretty far back, probably not going to make it, so I kind of backed off a little bit, tried not to brake quite as hard. He wasn't, you could tell he wasn't sure if he was going to make that one or not, so he had to kind of reel it in a little bit. Probably lost some time there, let me catch up to him a little bit just by kind of predicting that and being a little bit smoother there. And then here I go. You could see his bike was a little unsettled there going into that turn. He went a little bit wide. I try to do it, and here we go. I tip in a little bit early here, and it sends me wide. He gets back through, and then, yep, he's right there. I had no clue he was that close, so I was a little bummed to lose 2 spots on that, but, you know, fair game. At this point, I know we're getting down on the number of laps. I'm terrible at counting how many laps we have left or keeping track of what lap I'm on, but I know we're late in the race, and so I'm like, let's just try to get back up on them, see if anyone makes a mistake, especially as the race gets on. People get tired, people get slower, people start making mistakes, so if you get up there, stay with them. And here we go. He makes a mistake there. That's not an easy place to make this mistake because there's not a great place to run wide and get back on the course quickly. So that was a bummer for him. More traffic kind of in the back there. He stayed wide, which was great, let us through. We get some good drive out of here. You can see him checking back to see who's behind him. You see white flag out there, so now we finally know it's the last one. This is when I try to put the hammer down. I'm like, all right, last one, let's see what we can do. And this ends up being my fastest lap of the race. As it turns out, he responds very well and does his, I think this was his fastest lap of the race too, but it was certainly faster than my lap, so unfortunately I don't quite catch him, but I left out of here pretty happy with the performance. I mean, it's double points, we didn't crash, we got some points. B, putting down, I feel like putting down my fastest lap of the race and ended up being the whole weekend because it got wet for the sprints and everything. Putting down my fastest lap on the last lap of the race, I'm happy with. I feel like that means, physically I'm doing something right as well to be able to kind of push a little bit at the end there and put down those times. And then, also we got third in amateur for this one. So again, I have a hard time telling where exactly I am in the race for some of these because we're mixed with amateurs and experts. A couple guys took off early and were out of this kind of view, and I had no clue where they were, and I didn't know how many. I didn't get to count how many people were in front of us. He's doing a great job staying in front of me, so this was kind of who I was battling with, and obviously the guy who's now behind me a little bit, but yeah, overall pleased with this one. Came out with a podium for amateur, and can't complain about that. NOLA for the first time. Great track, really cool, kind of compound and everything out there. And that's it.